Truepenny. I was at Chiron 73, 74, basically.
I'm Warwick Truepenny. I was at Chiron 1971, 72 and 73. I did the three schools from Valley Street, Quarry Place and also in Birch Grove. So I suppose I was one of the rare ones that actually got to experience the all facets of the school.
Well, I came from St Andrew's Cathedral, same as Warwick, which is in the heart of the city and is extremely authoritarian. So yeah, individual thought or action was never encouraged there.
Why we moved to Chiron is probably my fault, because I wanted to join the Air Force and I needed certain grades to get that, and when the headmaster at St Andrews laughed at the grades I wanted to do, I thought, well, maybe I have to go and find somewhere else. And my mother, Shirley, she said she used to go to NBC, and so that's probably why I went there, and then Adrian followed after. I could do the grades I wanted, and that was fine with John and Philip, and so it was up to me basically to fulfil those grades. I didn't get through, that's why I repeated year 6, and eventually I did get the grades that I required, but I didn't get the job, let's say, in the Air Force, which is probably a good thing as well.
Well,
things just turn out. It was very different. As far as St Andrews, if you didn't have your homework done, I mean, yeah, the first time I went to St Andrews, it was everyone that hasn't got their homework put their hand up. So I thought, I didn't do the homework, and I didn't put my hand up. And then the headmaster was Bob McCall, I think.
No, Bob wasn't the headmaster.
No, not the, sorry, the English, the maths
teacher. Yeah.
Said anyone that didn't have their homework put their hand up, and it was, okay, out the door, you're all getting 4 cuts of the cane, and I'll come back and check the rest of you, and you're going to get 6 cuts of the cane for not doing your homework. I think this is second year there.
Well, when I was there, he would do that in rows, in like the first row, so he never wanted to sit in the front row because you're the ones who got the cuts. While he was out giving those cuts, every other row was furiously doing
and that's what I was doing. I said to my mate, let me borrow your stuff. I'm going, oh my God. But there was none of that at Chiron. It was more, well, you don't want to do your homework, why are you here? If you don't want to do anything, there are consequences. You won't get the grades that you want. There was more a rational approach, a reasoning of...
oh yeah, far more rational approach.
And I had goals that I wanted to achieve, and I wanted to get there, so I tended to do as much.
Well, the thing that I could never get my head around at St Andrews was they taught the Christian ethic in that, you know, forgive your trespasses. But if I trespassed, it was all hell broke loose. You know, they'd do a tango on my head. So where was the forgiveness for me? And it never seemed to work. It was only applied to me, to other people. You know, if somebody did something I was annoyed with, I was supposed to forgive and turn the other cheek. But if I did something wrong, an innocent mistake, all of a sudden all hell broke loose. So I couldn't quite rationalise that. So I was much more happy with Chiron's approach, where, you know, if you went to Philip's class and you didn't have your homework or you weren't participating, he'd just give you that look. And that look was enough to make you realise that you'd done the wrong thing. Mind you, it never made me do the right thing, but you knew it was there. And any sort of judgment was a peer thing. So, you know, if you did the wrong thing, you'd know you'd done the wrong thing, and that was enough. And yeah, I was happy with that sort of approach. But then, you know, we moved to Perth in 76 with that sort of distance, and in those days, you know, the only form of communication was STD phone calls. And yeah, it tended to make it very difficult to keep in touch with people. these days you push of a button on a computer and you can talk to anybody. But it wasn't quite like that in the 70s.
I still talk to, I stayed to come to this event. I stayed with my best friend from St Andrews. He was the best man at my wedding and I was the best man at his wedding, so we remained close from there. But probably not so much from the Chiron people.
Yeah, funny that.
We seem to just drift apart. Everyone seemed to go their own ways. There was a lot of more arts people probably attending Chiron.
Oh yeah.
Never really that involved in the arts. It's been great catching up with people like Susie McMeekin. I saw her exhibition down in Melbourne fairly recently. And it's just some of these people, you haven't seen them for decades. It's just like it was yesterday. It's really good.
Yeah, exactly.
That was one of the great things about Chiron. There was never, everyone was so accepting of everyone else and had different opinions. It was, I think at St Andrews there's always a level of bullying. It was less than probably
it was
private, public school, but it was still there. But there was never any of that.
Well, I think it was encouraged at St Andrews, basically.
You're probably right.
Yeah.
A level, but
in the best traditions of English aristocracy sort of thing,
But there was never any at Chiron, not even like.
Oh God, no.
Not even remotely. It was a breath of fresh air.
Some of the excuses that were accepted stick in the memory. In that a friend at Chiron, John O'Grady, showed up late for, I think it was Kerry Hoffman's class once. And he says, "Oh, sorry, Kerry, the train had a flat tyre." And she just sort of looked at him and said, "Interesting," and then just went on with it, If you tried that at St Andrews, I mean, you'd never see the light of day. They'd find some dungeon to throw you in. But it was a self-regulating thing at Chiron. You just didn't do too stupid a thing because, you knew it was wrong sort of thing. Whereas St Andrews, a lot of people would actually push the boundaries to see how far they could go and get away with it, which probably explains a lot of the criminals in the corporate world. Well, I was sort of strange in the Chiron sense because politically I was probably far to the right of Genghis Khan, but that's one thing with the Chiron education. I was never into the academic side, so consequently I spent a lot of time in the front bar at the Warwick with a few other people. But the Chiron experience for me was more, how would I put it? It gave me a social education. When I started, I think I believed that tolerance and understanding were virtues and not to be wasted on foreigners. But I was a lot more accepting of different views because you would have discussions with people rather than be told this is what it is and that's what you do. And,
that's how you think, and that's you weren't told what to do. It was, well, what do you think about this? And form your own opinion. What do you want to do?
There were people that actually valued your opinion.
Yeah, that never happened.
And if they didn't happen to agree with your opinion, you would have a discussion and you'd come to a mutual point where you both understood what was happening.
Or that you'd agree to disagree. But
yeah, and it was an acceptable thing to agree to disagree.
Yeah, and I think also the teachings of Aldous Huxley and some of these philosophers that I'd never heard of before, and these ideas, and when they explained concepts of herd poisoning, where you've got a charismatic leader and they can influence the whole way a society or a group behave. And suddenly the things that were happening back in St Andrews made a lot more sense.
Yes.
And,
They made a lot more sense, but they were still no more palatable.
Oh, absolutely not. But you understood a lot more of what the dynamics of what was happening in that society. It's something I knew was wrong when I was there, and the hypocrisy and everything of the church. There were some very good people in the church, but there were some appalling leaders in the church as well. And you sort of understood how the naked power struggles that went on within the church affected everything, the daily running of it, and the way their attitudes to education and to students. And I think that's probably reflected in the attitudes of kids that have been through that education. They go through, and if they're bullying, they do that in the same corporate world, and it perpetuates itself.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
They're sort of still there, and we just don't have to agree with their ethos.
It's fortunate in the corporate world, unlike the school world, when you disagree and you become bullied or you don't like the boss, you tend to just resign and move on somewhere else. In the school, you really didn't have that option.
True.
For me, the combination of different types of schooling, I think in probably the earlier part of high school, you probably need some sort of a discipline, more disciplined approach to get your.
Yeah, I mean the rigid part. I mean, probably is more useful in primary school. You know, learning your tables by rote and things like that. Yeah, I can see the value in that. I sort of despair when I meet kids these days studying at university, and their grammar particularly is atrocious. You know, the old reading and writing and arithmetic is just out the window. So I think primary school is where you instill that thing, and I've read stuff that university students write, and I'm frankly appalled. You know, you just about need a translator to work out what they're saying. I've got two daughters. We were living in Kalgoorlie at the time when they were in high school. There wasn't any choice. You know, they went to the local government school. Both of them sort of dropped out of high school in what would be class year 5 over here. But they had a thing going there where they went and did their leaving through Curtin University, who had a campus in Kalgoorlie. So they both ended up finishing high school, but at a university, which is a strange thing. The funny thing was, when we first had a look at Chiron on Facebook, you know, this is probably 6-7 months ago, and there was a photo of me and John on the beach somewhere north of Sydney, and you know, I was drunk and John had his arm around me, and I said, my daughter Laura said, "Who's that?" And I said, "That was my headmaster." And she sort of looked at me and said, "Why the hell did you go to a school like that and you send me to a..." I said, "Well, I haven't got any choice, darling, you know." But she gave me curry about that for a while. And I can understand that. She's underprivileged not having a place like Chiron.
Well, I live down in Melbourne. Both my kids have gone to private school, to Yarra Valley Grammar School, which is an Anglican co-educational school, so I wouldn't send my son to a strictly boys' school or my daughter to a girls' school. I thought that was absolutely necessary, because you've got to mix in life, and the separation I didn't think worked for me. The other thing that I liked about Yarra Valley Grammar was they had the ethos of trying to give kids self-confidence and to present themselves. And the kids that we did a tour of the school they had that that confidence about them that they were not scared to come up to prospective parents and talk about the school and what they liked about the school. I asked them some basic questions about technology because my wife and I are both computer programmers, what they thought about having laptops, because some schools have mandatory laptops, and they said, oh, technology is secondary to the education that they want to instill in the kids, and they thought it wasn't necessary, which was a big tick. They could have quite easily said, oh yes, we've got the latest technology, this and that, but to my mind it is secondary. The education you receive comes from good quality teachers who are dedicated and approachable, and that's the education that they got, and I think they received pretty good education. What they do with it is pretty much their calling.
Well, of course, the thing with technology is life doesn't revolve around batteries. Go to a supermarket when there's a power cut. Nobody can add up in their head anymore. Everybody relies on machines.
It was a unique time, I think, and for me it came at the right time of my life because, as you said, when everything was coming together, you were finishing your schooling years, and at the end of it I really knew who I was, where I wanted to go. It just made a lot of sense to me. I'm eternally grateful that it did happen that way. Where I wanted to go in life was more or less, life just sort of takes over, and for me it wasn't so much going to university, although I did go to university for a small amount of time, but it's not really where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And
well, I actually started a degree at Murdoch in history, but I did probably first semester, and I thought, no, not really. I'm sort of less focused and worried career-wise, in that I'm still trying to work out what I'm going to do when I grow up. It hasn't happened yet. But I think I had to do an elective in philosophy at Murdoch, and I really got stuck on the question, if the tree falls in the forest, does it make a noise? And the best answer I could come up with is, I don't really care as long as it doesn't fall on me. So I figured academia was not my chosen path.